Good evening, everyone. To all our viewers, a very warm welcome from Caregiver Saathi. Today, I'm here hosting a very special caregiver. Old age is going to catch up with all of us. Old age comes with its own set of challenges. I would say it comes with a baggage. And in that baggage, there is a small little compartment called illnesses. Some illnesses are loved ones, the elderly loved ones, are they're able to cope up well, but there are certain illnesses which become life limiting. One of such illness is dementia and Alzheimer's. So before I move on, I want to read something that touched my heart a lot. It's called Alzheimer's Request. Do not ask me to remember. Do not try to make me understand. Let me rest and know you are with me. Kiss my cheek and hold my hand. I'm confused beyond your concept. I'm sad and sick and lost. All I know is that I need you to be with me at all cost. Do not lose your patience with me. Do not scold, curse, or cry. I can't help the way I'm acting. I can't be different, though I do try. Just remember that I need you, that the best of me is gone. Please don't fail to stand beside me. Love me till my life is gone. I get goosebumps when I read of this. And today I have Geeta, who's done everything that this poem talks about. She's been there. And without wasting much time, I extend a very, very warm welcome to Geeta. With that poem, Geeta, from the entire team of Caregiver Saathi, a very loving and a warm welcome to you. And I request you to kindly introduce yourself for the sake of our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you, Vandana. Yes, I get goosebumps when I hear this also. You know, I've read this many times and it rings so close to my heart. Thank you for the lovely introduction. And I want to say a special thanks to Caregiver Saathi for the tremendous, wonderful job that you guys are doing. And one thing I learned in my journey is how much caregivers need support and help, because it's a very lonely journey. We often feel lonely. So kudos to your entire team and thank you. So introduction, I'm a South Indian girl, born and raised in Bombay. I still try to say Bombay, at Chembur. After my undergraduate degree in accounting, I moved to the US in 1987, and there I lived for almost 30 years. I got my MBA from Michigan State University, so go Spartans. And then I worked with many multinational companies in consulting type roles. I've always been single, so very independent, you know, like on the spur of the moment decisions, because I didn't have to worry about impacting anyone and getting permissions or anything. That was my life. I could just quit my job if I wanted to. I could go on a trip if I wanted to. So that is how it was. I have two sisters elder to me also in the US. My parents, my lovely parents, they would go back and forth because we were all there. Until their move upon our insistence, permanent move to the US in 2014. So that is in a nutshell about me and my family.
Go Spartan. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Geeta. And it's an absolute pleasure to host you here today. Geeta, we've had conversations and you've told me about the extraordinary caregiving journey you've had with your father. So can you take us through that? How has it been for you?
Sure. So when it started around 16, I think, 16, 17 is when I started hearing the word dementia or, anything around it. But before that, I want to talk about my father, because my father was the one who had dementia, most likely due to Alzheimer's. He was about 92, a very young 90-plus-year-old person. He was a very active person. He had reluctantly moved to the US because there was no likelihood that we would move here. very active, and he loved talking to people, and did a lot of social work, and he had a lot of interest. He knew cooking, very independent man. My mom wasn't there. He was not one of those Indian men who would be lost, who is going to cook me food. He had no problem. So that was the kind of person he was. So he moved for our sake to the US, and he lived with me. But my life did not change much. It was not impacted because they were so independent, very not at all demanding. My mom, in fact, it enhanced my own life because my mom would do all the cooking and my dad would help her with cutting vegetables, and he did the laundry for both of them. I had to do very little except when there was a medical situation or I had a doctor's appointment. Only thing is, for him, it was isolating. So for elderly people, Michigan, we were in Michigan and we had long winters. He would go for walks in the summer, but the winters were isolating and not people visiting. So he missed that. But they were not people who would complain at all. They adjusted really well until 2016-17, when he had some physical issues. He had a surgery, and then he lost his hearing. So as you may already know, that it is one of the risk factors, one of the many risk factors. Hearing loss doesn't mean dementia, but it can accelerate it because he started to withdraw from conversations because he could not participate. He felt he could not participate. He also had a loss of his sight slowly because of age-related macular degeneration. So there were different physical ailments that started happening. And then memory loss was already there, but we didn't know. We just thought it was old age, normal. I'm forgetting things, and I wonder if I have dementia now. But you forget things, and you repeating himself. That happened. But then there were more things that happened that were more than just memory loss. I could not just dismiss them as due to old age because he would forget where he was. We had gone to a concert once, and he suddenly thought he was in India, and he got agitated a little bit. I used to take him to my sister's house. She lived 3 hours away, and he would suddenly forget that we had discussed this trip, and he would get agitated saying, "You didn't tell me, I didn't bring my clothes. What am I going to do?" So those kinds of things happened. And then, but remember, I didn't know anything about dementia. I didn't recognize this as dementia. I was just, trying to logically understand him and what was happening to him. And every evening, I didn't, something now that I know to be sundowning happened, like clockwork around 4:30, confusion would become very pronounced. He would think he was in a train. He would sometimes think somebody was in the room taking pictures of him and they were going to do something that was not very nice. So all of these things started compounding, and I was becoming overwhelmed because I had a career at that time. I had a job. Until then, and another thing was, now came a point I could not leave him alone. Because until then, I would go on trips. I said I had a very independent life. I could go on business trips. I would go on trips with my friends, and my parents would be there alone, and they were okay. But now, even if I had to take my mom for a medical appointment, I had to ask someone if they would sit with him for a little bit, and so my life started to slowly change. So from there, so that was the start, how it started. And because I had a sister who's a physician, I knew that I needed to get this diagnosed. I knew enough to go to a neurologist and get it diagnosed. And I didn't understand the diagnosis. It was mild to moderate cognitive decline. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what would come. I was just living day to day. Okay, what is happening? Slowly, I was becoming sleep deprived, and I was becoming worried and confused about what I was seeing. So from there, my journey started to the middle stages, all the way to the end, the later stages. So I saw the entire progression of dementia with him when finally he lost all recognition of us, and he depended completely on us. And we moved to India, had to make some major decisions, such as moving to India. And then he passed away this past November, 2020. I can't hear you.
He was a wonderful man. From what you've shared with us, Geeta, I have gooseflesh. independent, somebody who loved life, and just a man who loved life. So thank you for sharing him with us, Geeta. My heart also goes out to what he went through, and you as a caregiver went through, Geeta. It's not easy to lose your cognitive abilities, and for somebody who's been independent, it must have been so difficult. So there are a couple of things, Geeta, that I would request you to talk about. One is for our viewers, and especially the caregivers who are dealing with parents with dementia, what could be the early signs of dementia? Another thing that I would definitely want you to talk about, because you've been through it, we read about sundowning. There are definitions online, but if you could, from your experience, take us through what exactly sundowning is. So it would be very helpful.
Sure. So the early signs, I think some of those that I already talked about, okay, forget memory loss is a lot of that is normal. All of us, we are distracted, and it's happening more and more to us also at all ages. And repetition, that is true. But here it is more than just what you see with us is with those without dementia. He would ask, what is the time? Or when are we going? And then he would keep it. We used to be in a loop. It would happen like 10 times, 20 times. Over and over again. So that is excessive, because it is like it's a seed. His memory is like a seed, and he's not able to create short-term memories. I think that's the gist of it. And then I would see compulsive behaviors, like he would during sundowning. I will talk about sundowning. Is folding blankets. Because it was very cold in winters, I would have like throws everywhere, blankets, and for a long time, very meticulously trying to line up. And these were things that he never did before. And then him forgetting prayers that were part of his life for since childhood, and that distressed him. It never happened, he could never forget. And then I would assist him by playing those prayers on YouTube, so he could chant along, but on his own he couldn't remember. And there were things like how to wear his clothes. He could still remember that. But I would lay out his clothes for him before going to work, because he could still bathe himself. But then I would come back and see that he had thrown those clothes in the wash, and then he would have worn the same clothes that he had worn before. And then there was one time, this is sort of funny when I think about it. It's not so funny. It was not so funny at that time. We were running out of underwear for him, and I said, what the heck? What is happening? I had bought so many. And then they were disappearing. And then one day I found that in the little drawer in the bathroom, he was just stashing them, There was no reason why. And he was just, so they were all there, and in an unlikely place where I would not have thought. But I think the most pronounced ones were he had been living there for a long time. He had visited us for many years. He would forget where the bathroom was, or he would walk after a trip to my sister's, he would come back and he would walk around the house, trying to figure out if this was a place he knew, and then occasional loss of recognition. We had a couple of instances where he refused to agree that it was his wife. That was hard, because my mom, I had to tell my mom, please. And he was very angry and upset that he thought it was a strange lady coming to lie and lying down next to him at night. And I said, okay, why don't you just go and sleep in the next room? And the next morning during breakfast, I asked him, do you know who this is? Yeah, she's my wife. So these were some of the early symptoms that I see this not knowing where they are, because I see this in a relative as well. That is very common. And then keeping things in unlikely places. And then his personality changes. He was someone who would never complain, and he was becoming withdrawn and depressed a bit. So I think he knew the changes happening in him, and that loss of control. And that was expressing as depression, or him constantly complaining, which he was never a person to complain. About sundowning. So sundowning is something happens, excessive confusion or that happens late afternoon, at sundown when is very common. So it continues until late night. This could continue. So there are a few things they suggest. They say that you draw the drapes, close the curtains, and then turn the light on early on. So it is at different times for different people. For my father, it was like clockwork around 4:30. I've seen that people say it happens anytime during the day and they call it sundowning. So you notice the pattern, and I think you could do some of these things. And they also have now, I don't know what they are called, certain types of lights that you could turn on. In fact, I had bought one. My sister had gifted me one that I would keep next to him and I would turn it on. So apparently that does help in some way. But then everything else, you try to distract them, and, he will, over time, you learn that this passes. Okay, I know this is a behavioral thing that happens. Maybe what we could think about lowering the volume of TV at that time, or turning off TV at that time. Anything that would cause them to be distressed or not have guests at that time. Maybe that would cause them more confusion. So make the place quiet and give them things that would calm them, maybe music or some chants that my father knew. I would play them, or talk about stories that he enjoyed talking about his childhood or about his relatives. So give him a more calming environment.
Thank you for sharing that, Geeta. And I'm sure there are some viewers who are dealing with this. And for them to get these, tips, or maybe the signals, how to cope up or how they can be prepared that this could be the beginning of dementia, would be very helpful. Geeta, we've spoken about your wonderful dad. Now I want to talk about you. As a caregiver, must have been tough on you, Geeta. And I remember when we had a conversation 2 days back, you did tell me that there were times when you wouldn't sleep at night, keeping an eye out for him. So tell us about how difficult it's been for you, Geeta. I know it's not easy. You love him, but in spite of that, you are human.
Yeah. So to all the caregivers out there, I want to say that it's not an easy journey, okay? Because it's almost like the person you knew died, but they're still alive with you, but they don't know you and they're changing, right? And that is very hard. And when you don't understand, there's not a lot of information out there, or a lot of times you don't have access to that information in terms of a friend, or it's often dismissed as old age. And so it is difficult. It can be very lonely. So the lonely, and my father was dealing with a type of isolation, I'm sure, but I was dealing with a type of isolation because I lost my freedom to just go away without worrying about him, about his safety and so forth. So that was one thing. Sleep deprivation was another thing, because over time, his days and nights would get switched. And especially as it progressed, after I came back to India, it was completely a different stage. My father could never find the bathroom, and at night he would scream, and he would want to go out, and so there were a lot of those things. And so for me it was very challenging, and there was resentments. I went through all the caregiver emotions. So why me? Why did it happen to me? And why am I alone in this? I want to go out, have fun with my friends. I want, you feel trapped. So I felt all of that. So I think whatever I did for my father, that commitment was there. I think that was kind of ingrained. I think it is more, a lot of that came from the heart than from the head, because I think when you think about it, you feel resentful. Why me? And we calculate. I think all those emotions come.
Yeah.
But when you, I knew one thing that was a hard decision from my heart, is I knew I wanted to take care of my father, and there was no compromise. I wanted to take care of him at home. So yes, it was very difficult. The loss of sleep, the loss of freedom, and the loss of my career. In October 2017, I just walked in one day to work, and I had no intention of quitting my job that day. And something pushed me over the edge, and I gave my 2 weeks notice. and I have not worked since. So I didn't work. And then I had to make the decision to move here. I had to travel while he could still travel physically, because I knew that after a while he won't be able to travel, and I will need a lot of help. I will need a lot of help. So it was not like a well thought out. People ask me, Geeta, how after 30 years in the US, how did you move back here? I think it was not a very logical, calculated decision, because when you do that, you never make a decision. You have this thing called analysis paralysis.
Yeah,
not a balance sheet.
Absolutely, Geeta.
So it is again a decision that came from my heart. Okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I learned to reprioritize. My priority was my dad, his well-being. I needed to take care of him with the least amount of stress on me. And that would happen if I had help. And I would get that help in India. It would be affordable. And here I had a support system. I had people I knew. I had relatives that assured me that they would be there for me. Looking back, that happened. So yes, so I hope I answered your question. There was a lot of stress. And the one thing I want to say, it affected me physically. I think I mentioned to you that I had alopecia areata. So that was a physical manifestation of how caregiving affected me. But this process was very transformative. And I think that is what I want to convey. I grew with my dad up with the progression of my dad's dementia. So I started with someone who had all these emotions that were kind of holding me back. But I came to a point where I learned to step into his world, and I realized that my dad is still there. It was a different version of my dad. And actually it opened up new doors for me, because I could relate to him. Like, he became my child in a way. And I would hug him, and I would take my face close to him, and he would give me a kiss. And I got so many, I remember all those kisses. And this is something I've never seen in a South Indian family, So we were like, he would hug me, and you may have seen that picture of him holding me tight.
That is a lovely picture. I'm sorry, I have to interject. And for the viewers, she's shown me such an up-close moment with her father. My heart fills with joy for that man, and for the love the daughter has for her father. Thank you for sharing that precious memory.
Yes, sure. And see, that is a transformation I want to share with people, that when that happened, my journey became something else. I became much more relaxed, because I learned to use the help I had. I had my time with him of, storytelling and laughing and singing with him. And I started recording those moments that I can now look back on. And so it can be a very positive journey. And I discovered strengths in me that I did not know existed. Strength and creativity.
Yeah. I actually feel transported into your world, Geeta. When you talk of him, of the stories that you probably shared, the memories that you made, the recordings that you must have had with him, there's such beautiful memories you're sharing with us. And also for the viewers, though she does say that it was a really uphill task, and it's not easy as a caregiver, which is something very important that I want to point out. It is okay for the caregiver to feel, oof, do I deserve this? But alongside, she made a conscious choice from her heart. I think that's called love, isn't it, Geeta? Love.
I want also the caregivers to learn to forgive themselves, because I don't want people to think that I was this perfect caregiver. It's always going to be an imperfect story. And I think perfection is overrated, I've had meltdowns. I've lost my patience with my dad, but I've learned from it. And, because it doesn't work when you lose it with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are the adult with them. You're the one still with the cognitive abilities. So you learn to do things differently. But all that happens, it's okay. You've had a bad day. You're probably dealing with many other things. It's okay. You forgive yourself, and then you still love them. It doesn't mean you don't love them if you're not a good caregiver.
So it's all comes down to love for your parents, doesn't it? Yeah. And Geeta, with all these changes, there were big changes in your life. giving up a job that you've been doing for 30 years, then moving to India. My God, what a big change in your life that must have been. And you, like you said, it must have come with its own set of baggages. How did you cope up? There must have been fallouts, Geeta. And what happens is somehow it is taken for granted that the caregiver is meant to be doing everything without complaining or without, saying, oh, how will I cope up? So how did you cope up? And also through you, I also want to send out one message that whatever she's saying, I would like the viewers to listen to intently, because they are words of wisdom for the caregivers. Geeta, yours now.
I've learned from other caregivers, likewise the ones, yes. So there are many different ways I kind of managed to keep my sanity and go through this. And I feel proud of, what I was able to do. One is when I came here, I did seek out a support group. I came to know that you need support. So support group is one thing that I strongly recommend. I found out that there are such things when I was in the US. So because you find your peers, you feel that you come to know that you're not alone in this. There are other people going through the same experience, and you learn from them. And so that is a great source of help and confidence. Then for me, self-care, that was something also there. It started already in the US. I started strength training. So I would go to the gym, and I had a community. I think very important is to have a set of things to do and set of people that you can meet with that are not connected with your loved one in any way, that with dementia in any way. So I had a space where I could talk about something completely unrelated to rejuvenate my just my mind, so that I had. When I came back here, I couldn't find the same thing, but there is always an alternative. I started doing yoga. I'm very passionate about music. So in the US, we had a karaoke group. We used to get together and once in a while and sing. Music is always very therapeutic. It helped my father also, because that is one thing that never goes away. They can still understand and feel music. So music, exercise, support group. And then I had a couple of other groups where we would just chat, and we would have activities and games and things like that. So all of that take you away from your loved one, away from dementia, caregiving, they all help me come back to my father and care for him even better.
Yeah. And why I was stressing upon, making a note of what she said is because in Geeta's words, it's okay to take out time for yourself. Geeta, exactly. Please do talk us through that also, how you strongly feel that caregivers should be able to take off, I think, self-care, self-preservation.
So I personally believe that with or without dementia, for anybody, your life cannot revolve around one person. Yes, with dementia, it does tend to become like that. And I think more so for Indians, I think when you have a child, it revolves around the child. When you're married, it revolves around your husband. I think we're kind of predisposed. And I think it's not very healthy. So when you have dementia, it's multifold, it's multiplied, this whole predisposition. So I think it's very important, because for me, when I talked about meltdowns, when you're in a pressure cooker kind of situation all the time, when I'm thinking about every little detail of my father, did he eat? What is he eating? Did he eat his medicines? Did he go to the bathroom? Did he take his bath? And everything is like a challenge. We cannot remain calm and collected all the time. We need to have a space to, move into where you're by yourself. Even if it's your room, you go into your room, read a book, or just close your eyes for a little bit when I don't have to worry about. I think that is absolutely like a lifeline for us. Then I can go back. I'm a different person almost. I'm a different person, and to help them. So I get all the help also, because I was able to do that because I hired full-time help. It took some time for me to get around to that. But I see other people also trying to resist that for many reasons. Affordability. No, I don't want somebody in my space. No, I will do it myself. I see this and I have done it. But when I finally got the help, I felt liberated, because I could move into my room and be away from it. I could go away for a little bit. Yes, that is absolutely crucial, I think, to caregiving. And it is for both ourselves and for our loved one.
Very precious inputs there, Geeta, because if the caregiver is burnt out, then it's going to reflect, I think, probably on both sides. And it could lead to a very difficult situation at home. So please, I hope everybody has made a note of that it is okay to self-preserve. Don't feel guilty. You are also human. And Geeta listed out a lot of things that she did. Every caregiver can find their own ways of taking a break and spending some time for themselves and in themselves. Geeta, I also would like you to, because, coming to India and setting up the entire support structure for your father must have come with its own set of challenges. What were the challenges that you faced while trying to arrange for help for your dad? It's not easy in India.
Yeah. So in my mind, I don't know. I think it would have been more difficult for me in the US, is what I think, because of the cultural differences. If I had gotten help there, it would probably, I would want an Indian because of the language and all that. So I think the challenge is everywhere. But for me, moving to India, I was blind to this. I trusted people when they said, "Oh yeah, you can get help," but I didn't know anything. I didn't know how anything worked. So I had a learning curve. There were challenges of, hiring someone, training them, not working out, getting rid of them, and all that happened, and a lot of stress around personnel management happened. So, okay, the challenges were first learning about India and how things worked here, that there are agencies that you can call, and the advantages of an agency versus there are other people who don't work with an agency, but you can just call them and hire them directly. There are advantages to both economic, in the economic sense and other ways, I think over time, I mastered that skill of negotiating, talking to them, training them. I had to get rid of a few. And then I was lucky too. I think you need an element of luck with everything. I was lucky that I had somebody even through COVID, because when that was my biggest worry, that in 2020, we had all these, the lockdown happened. I was still able to have somebody come, and there were decisions I made also, Vandana, that it is always, there were people who were too scared. They just stopped caregivers from, attendants from coming in. I just decided I'm going to take a chance. This is a risk. I will take that risk, but I cannot manage without help. For 24 hours. I can do it for 1 day, 2 day, maybe a week. Beyond that, no. So I was able to find the right kind of help. And then I learned how to work with them. So there's always learning in different aspects, training them and teaching them how to talk to my father, how to deal with him, and so on.
Thank you for sharing that, Geeta. And about your support structure.
Yeah. So my support structure were okay. So for my family, my sister, one of my sisters is a doctor. So she was, available all the time to, especially with medical questions, anything to do with medicines. Actually, I'm also a caregiver for my mother. She's 92 and now I'm taking care of her. So she had a heart attack soon after I came here.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask you about your mom also. Thank you for bringing her up. Yeah.
So that happened. So all of that, for me to decide about her medications and all of that. So that was a great support with my sister, that I could just tell her, you talk to the doctor. I did this. I would do the same thing in the US as well. You make the appointments. When we were in the US, I would tell her, this takes time. I have to go to work. You take care of the appointments. I will take them to the doctor. So when we moved here, it was the same thing. You think this is what the doctor is prescribing. You tell me, is this okay? This is the course of action. So I had someone to lean on that way, and also to vent, in the family. I could talk about this is what happened at home today. But then the support group also. I had, even outside the support group, it's not always that you're able to open up in a support group. But I made friends. So offline, we would reach out and I would talk to them and they understood, and we would even meet. That was a great support for me. So, and then I had my, couple of my aunts. I want to mention this cousin of mine because I told you she had cancer, and I want to honor her by mentioning her because she was my lifeline. I moved to India because of her, because she said, I will be there for you. But she passed away just a couple of months before my father passed away. And in bed, lying down, she did everything for me. All the attendants that I hired and got rid of, she would do all the negotiations for me. So that was my support system. Some family, some friends, some caregivers.
She's summed it up so nicely for us. And I'm so sorry for your cousin sister. We've spoken about her. Yeah. And now you've spoken about your mom. That's another, caregiving that you're doing presently. And anything that you would like to share about that, Geeta?
Yeah, sure. So my mom, again, I want to say that I'm so blessed to have the parents that I've had, because they're both, they've sacrificed for us without expectations. The very low maintenance parents, I like to call them. Unfortunately, my dad had dementia. But my mom, she's 92 now. And so I have to do a lot of things for her, like help her with a bath and just getting her the food to where she's sitting and all that. But so I don't feel that I can leave her and take a trip or something like that. So that is the caregiving that I'm doing. But she will tell me go. She is the kind of person who will tell me go, and I probably could. So that is where she is. She doesn't have dementia, it's just old age. She's just old age and not a lot of mobility.
And I must tell everyone who's tuned in, she's a beautiful person. I've seen pictures of Geeta and her.
Thank you.
And Geeta, through this platform, what would you like to tell the caregivers, especially for parents with dementia and Alzheimer's? Your message for them.
Okay. So if you don't mind, because you started with a poem, I want to read a poem that I just read, and it just moved me. I think you will like it. It's called A Matter of the Heart. Dementia is a head condition, not a heart condition. When your loved one looks blank, it doesn't mean they have no feelings or thoughts. When your loved one does not smile, it does not mean they have no joy. When your loved one cannot remember your name, it does not mean they do not love you. While the mind forgets, the heart remembers. A moment of love and connection produces joy in the soul that is not soon forgotten. More than a memory, we are loving, thinking, feeling human beings, even behind the veil of dementia. This is by Leanne Chains, and it just moved me today because every sentence in there, every line in there, I experienced with my dad. He would not smile. Sometimes he would just look blankly. And I knew he was there, and you can always reach them. Love never fails. It was touch in the end. That's what he understood when he could speak no more. He didn't know us anymore. You know them. So there is always some way to enjoy the moment with them, and they're there for you. Don't be disheartened if they don't recognize you or know you by name. They know you. They know that you love them.
I'm so emotional after hearing that beautiful poem. Geeta, before we close the conversation, I remember, when we spoke earlier, that there were some incidents as the dementia progressed, where he started imagining things. So why I want you to speak about it, because so that the ones who are caregivers who are dealing with the early symptoms of dementia, when they'd see something like this, they're a little prepared. So can you just touch a little upon that, Geeta?
Sure. In all stages, I won't just say early stages, because there are certain first principles of dementia that I follow. What I just read, dementia is a head condition, not a heart condition. So it has affected your brain. So when you don't try to use logic, because their brain has been affected, so they're not going to understand if you try to explain logically. For example, my dad would ask for his mother, And in the initial stages, I would try to explain to him logically that you're 90 years old, 90 plus years old. How can your mom exist? She's gone. And that's never going to work. He's never going to remember that his mom gone, and he would be heartbroken. Sometimes I would make him cry. So I learned over time to walk into their world. I think walk into their world is something somebody taught me, a dear friend was also a caregiver, and I want to share that with people. You meet them where in their world. So when they see someone in the room, don't argue with them and don't try to contradict them. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm not able to see that person. Let's see let me go and see who is there. Maybe they're behind the curtain, or maybe they're, there is a shadow, so I cannot see that person. So, you go play along and play detective, and then in that process, distract them and redirect them, or even get into telling a story. I learned to talk to him about so many things. People wondered, I could talk to him for hours, So you change the subject and move them in a different direction. So yes, you're going to see hallucination. I want to go home. It's a very common thing. And I used to try to prove to him that this is your home. Why do you keep asking? I want to say, saying I want to go home, because it's a feeling. I want to go home. What is home to us? Home is a place where we feel comfort, there is familiarity, and we are loved. So when they say that, they are not feeling some of that. They are in a world that is unfamiliar to them. They don't know you. They don't know their surroundings. So they're lost. So they want to go home. So we need to figure out why. What is it? Is it a feeling? Maybe they need food. They're hungry. So instead of saying I'm hungry, they don't have the words to say that. At some point, they may say I want to go home, where I will get food. So it could be that, or maybe they need to be changed, or it could be any physical or emotional needs that are unmet. So these are a couple of things that I can share. But in general, walk into their world. Do not use logic, because you're not going to win the argument. Don't argue with them. So like I said, it is they still have feelings, and we can still reach them through love and affection. Hello?
My apologies. I think some trouble with the connection.
Okay, that's okay. Go back. I can't hear.
Yeah, some connectivity issues.
That's
so. Yeah, and like you said, maybe there are times when I've heard a lot of elderly talk about their parents. So that's their way of maybe searching for love.
Yeah, I would also tell him, when he would talk about his aunt and parents, and I would say, okay, she is in Kerala, that's where he was from, and I would say, do you want to go there tomorrow? Let me get you a ticket. Do you want me to buy a ticket? We can go by train tomorrow. Shall I go with you? That's how my conversation used to be. And he would say, yes, we can go tomorrow. But tomorrow, he would forget that topic,
Before we wrap up,
that's okay.
For the viewers, you can hear my dog bark in the background. I really can't do much about it. So, what a small little anecdote that you would like to share with us, Geeta?
Yeah, so we had moments when we would laugh, and maybe one day I'll send you some of them, the videos. So there was one instance where he was still able to communicate quite well in the early stages, and he was having a nice little chat with the attendant, just gappa mar rahe the, like they were. So he was trying to teach her the meaning of a Sanskrit phrase called Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, which is very apt the circumstances we are all going through COVID. So Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu is, may everyone in all the worlds be happy, everyone in the world be happy. So he wanted to explain the meaning to her, and so she was going along with this. She didn't know the meaning anyway. She said, "Nahi appa, I don't know Sanskrit. I'm not educated like you. You're so smart. This. I don't know this. I don't know. I know only Marathi. I don't know English. I don't know Hindi." She kept saying, "I don't know. I don't know. I don't know." So he said, "Khana khane ko malum hai?" He said that and he burst out laughing and she burst out laughing. And I actually happened to capture that whole entire moment in a video. It was really something that I remember.
Yeah. And what a beautiful memory you've shared with us, Geeta. And I think our conversation has been a very beautiful conversation about how it is to be there for somebody you love who's going through dementia. So thank you for sharing your journey, your viewpoints, and lots of words of wisdom, which I'm sure many caregivers who are tuned in would have learned from and will inculcate in their lives. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here, Geeta. Thank you for giving us your time. And we look forward to associating with you at Caregiver Saathi so that we can learn and grow together. Thank you so much, Geeta.
My pleasure, Vandana. Thank you so much to you and for being a wonderful host, and also to Caregiver Saathi for doing this incredible work. I've been following many of your conversations. Even if it's not relating to dementia, I learned so much about caregiving and the experience of others. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice evening.
Yeah.